This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Films and Fermentation, episode 159. Tonight we are looking at perfect 80s flicks. This is not our list, by the way, so don't get angry at us. We were looking at an article from Collider.com that talked about the best films from the 80s or perfect films from the 80s. We're going to just discuss them tonight on the show. That's right, we are Films and Fermentation, a movie and alcohol podcast. I'm Leo.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Mike.
We're three friends who like to talk shit about movies while getting shit-faced. In this episode, we're taking you on a time-traveling DeLorean ride through the 80s, an era when films were as perfect as E.T.'s glowing finger and Bender's fist in the air. From Marty McFly's temporal adventures to the detention of a lifetime at the Breakfast Club, we've got it all. We'll dive into the magic of Spielberg and the intensity of Scorsese, proving that sometimes movies really do get it right from start to finish. So grab your flux capacitor and a glass of your favorite vintage, because it's time to toast to these perfect classics. Don't forget, you can drop us an email at filmsandfermentation@gmail.com or visit linktree.com/filmsandfermentation to find all of our social media and podcast links. Become part of the Films and Fermentation family by joining us on Patreon or buying our merchandise at teespring.com. We're a part of the Deluxe Edition Network, deluxeeditionnetwork.com, The Den, where you can find our podcast and all the other podcasts at The Den, including the podcast of the month, The Real Drunks.
Hey guys, Matt coming at you from The Real Drunks. Hey, if you're into movies, booze, craft beers, and just shooting the shit with your friends, join myself, Jake, and Alyssa on The Real Drunks on the Deluxe Edition Network and anywhere you get your podcast from. That's The Real Drunks, REEL, The Real Drunks. Check us out.
Boy, that one sounds really interesting. I like their topics.
I know. Yeah. That's a very novel idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I need one right now because I'm kind of aggravated. So what are we drinking tonight, gentlemen?
I'll go. I'm drinking. I am drinking one of my Hager Weiss Hefeweizen that I got from Antietam Brewing Company. There you go, boys. Mine was simple.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, what you got going on?
I have three different breweries, and I feel that based on the way today's going, I may get to all three. I'm going to start with Warwick Farms Margarita Shandy, a 4.2% alcohol by volume. I visited their brewery last week, and it's a nice place. It's just down the road from a golf course I play at. This is our Margarita Shandy, is a refreshing and zesty twist on the classic beverage. The tartness of the lime and agave complement the crispness of the beer, creating a delightful balance of flavors. Then I have from New Belgium, Voodoo Ranger Peach Force, an Imperial Peach IPA, which is 9.5% alcohol by volume. And then I'm going to finish with the Cape May Brewing Company Orange India Pale Ale Russian It, a fruit ale bursting with orange juice, and that's alcohol. That's at 8% alcohol by volume. So I should be pretty vishnickered by the end of the episode.
All right. I am making my drink live on the show right now. I decided I wanted to try to find something kind of themed. It was hard to find perfect cocktail without it giving me like what a perfect. It's like a certain kind of drink is referred to as perfect. So I just started looking up different movies, and I found a cocktail inspired by one of the films on our list. I'm going to tell you what's in it, and I'm going to tell you the name of the cocktail, and see if you can guess the movie that it was inspired by.
Okay.
So the first
Was it
ingredient.
cocktail?
What's that?
I said, was a movie cocktail?
No, that would have been fun. But no. So I'm using gin. I'm using one of my favorite Seneca drums from the Seneca Lakes in the Finger Lakes. It is Finger Lakes Distilling Company. The other ingredient is grenadine. I'm using a little Rose's grenadine here to give it a nice little pinkish hue. Simple syrup. I already put in there. And just for the hell of it, some Sprite. And this cocktail that I just made, according to the website that had the ingredients on it, is called Dreaming of Large Women. Come on, Mike.
I know this. Bride.
Yes, Princess Bride. When he defeats Andre the Giant in hand-to-hand combat and says, sleep tight, I don't envy the headache you'll have when you awake. In the meantime, dream of large women.
I was going to say that. I knew that one.
I don't know about the grenadine, but it's not that bad. I don't normally use grenadine often in my drinks.
That's mostly for color.
Is it sort of like a so the gin and the grenadine combined kind of gives it a sort of like, I don't know, almost like a cough drop flavor.
Je ne sais quoi.
More like I don't have to worry about my cough this week. Michael, what happened this week? In the meantime, what happened this week?
This week in film history.
I'll take the first one since I'm the one who wrote it. Mattel released this week a new Barbie doll. The special thing about this Barbie is that this Barbie is blind. She comes with a walking stick and other blind people accoutrement. This begs the question, though, did the other dolls actually have the ability to see?
Well, according to Toy Story, yes.
We have a new blind Barbie. Who's this for? Fucking... I mean, if you're a blind kid playing with a Barbie doll, it's pretty much a blind Barbie anyway.
To my understanding, it is all like the box has braille to it. It kind of breaks it down into like, blind kids should probably be playing with this.
Why not just do that to all the Barbie doll boxes and just make it inclusive to everybody?
How dare you? Inclusive.
Call me progressive. Michael, what's the second one you got on your list there?
1952 High Noon, American Western film directed by Fred Zinman, starring Gary Cooper and Thomas Mitchell, is released.
Is this one that you're a fan of? Is the
I've seen High
Western
Noon.
movie guy? I have not seen it. I have seen the next one you got here.
1959 Ed Wood's cult classic, Plan 9 from Outer Space, called one of the worst films ever, premieres.
Not only have I seen this film, it's in my Prime Video library.
So you bought it.
I bought it. I love Plan 9 from Outer Space. It includes the classic line, future events such as these will affect us all in the future. love this book. This book so bad. What's the next one you got there, Mike?
Whoa.
All right, there, Mike. Go ahead.
In 1974, Death Wish, based on a novel by Brian Garfield, directed by Michael Winner, and starring Charles Bronson, is released.
And then followed with like 7 sequels.
Yeah,
This guy had a lot of death wishes.
That would be a franchise.
Oh, it was a franchise. It definitely was. Charles Bronson was like 97 when he made the last one. Give me the next one there, Mike.
1993 romantic comedy film Sleepless in Seattle, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, co-written and directed by Laura Efron, is released.
Not a fan of romantic comedies in general, but this is one I can tolerate. It's actually a pretty well-constructed film.
It's good. It's all right. I can deal with it. It's not as good as Joe versus a volcano, but it's okay.
Kevin has this weird, like, if you say like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, most people go Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail. Not Kevin. Nope. Joe versus the volcano.
Joe versus the volcano.
Let's move on to my next Tom Hanks movie in 1998. Say Private Ryan, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Tom Hanks, Ed Burns, and Matt Damon, is released. Academy Award Best Director in 1999.
Best Director 1999, not Best Picture. Best Picture in 1999 was Shakespeare in Love. I like Shakespeare in Love. I like Shakespeare in Love. It's not better than Saving Private Ryan. This next one's weird. It's like a little indie film.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard of this one. In 2019, Marvel superhero film Avengers Endgame becomes the world's highest grossing film, overtaking Avatar, earning $2.9 billion.
$1 billion.
One of the best crowd reactions when everybody comes back at the end and the whole Avengers assemble and all that, the final battle at the end. Really, really cool crowd reaction seeing that in the theater. Not as great as the reaction when I went to see Infinity War in the theater and the 20-year-old kid next to me was crying when Spider-Man dusted.
But isn't the better thing was Spider-Man No Way Home getting when you see the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield show up?
That was a cool reaction too. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to compare the two, but yeah, that was also a cool reaction.
Yeah.
Not as good as my favorite reaction. My favorite reaction is when Black Panther dusted in Infinity War, and the black lady down the aisle from me went, "Oh hell no, we just got him."
Except Black Panther's been around since like the 50s.
I know. And technically Blade was the first Marvel superhero anyway, so in the theater in movies. Speaking of Marvel,
Black Panther wasn't going after avoiding tax evasion.
Speaking of Marvel films, San Diego Comic-Con was this past weekend, and the Marvel Room, of course, hosted by Kevin Feige, was very, very busy in announcing a bunch of new things, including
pretty quiet.
Yeah, pretty quiet.
Yeah,
including the return of Robert Downey Jr. to the MCU as Dr. Doom.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm thinking it's probably like, since it's all about the multiverse now, it's like a variant or something. But they announced in this order, this is when the films are coming out, starting in February 14th, 2025, Captain America Brave New World. Then the Thunderbolts on May 2nd. The Fantastic Four First Steps, July 25th, 2025. I'm actually pretty interested in this one because from what they're saying in the description here, it takes place in like a retro future 1960s. And it's not an origin story. They're already established when the film starts, and they will be playing a part in the new Avengers films that come out later as well. Blade has been announced for November 7th, 2025. This is the reboot with Mahershala Ali. Avengers Doomsday, May 2026, with the return of Robert Downey Jr. Avengers Secret Wars, May 2027. Shang-Chi 2 to be announced. Spider-Man 4 to be announced. And those are like the big announcements at the Comic-Con this weekend. The biggest one, of course, is Robert Downey Jr., who showed up in person dressed as Dr. Doom to surprise
blew up the whole internet.
I know. I did see something online a couple of days later about Phase 7 introducing all the mutants to the Marvel Universe. But I did some research into that, and it turned out to be a fan-made poster, so it wasn't true.
What phase are they on now?
This is going to be Phase 6. And this was originally going to be the Kang Dynasty, but now it's the Avengers Doomsday. So Dr. Doom is going to be the big bad instead of Kang.
Well, yeah, we know how that goes.
I don't know. I mean, part of me is like, all right, it's enough. And the other part of me is like, oh, I hope they kind of get back to where they were now a little bit and not be putting out the same stuff they've been putting out that's been kind of disappointing. No, we'll see. Mike, you have a must-try beer or craft destination for this evening?
Oh, must-try beer. Fremont Gold Pilsner from Fremont Brewing, Seattle, Washington. Talking about big flavor from a small beer, Fremont's classic Bohemian-style Pilsner is indeed full golden in color, filtered bright, and only weighs in at 4.5 ABV. Yet the depth of malt aromas and flavors really hit above their weight class. Lightly sweet on the palate with good heft, then dry a bit with some clean floral grassy Saza hops, but never reach the level of bitterness, more in keeping with a German style Pilsner. There you go, guys. Fremont Golden Pilsner from Washington State.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. I just switched my mic output, hoping that it helps a little bit with some of the problems we're having. And so far, so good. So,
all righty then.
All right. Kev, do you have a beer news tonight for us?
Yes, I do. Where's my theme song?
Here it comes.
Beer is good. Beer is good. Beer is good. It's soft. Beer is good. Beer is good. Beer is good. Let's go drink some beer.
Hello, everybody. Beer is good. All right, gentlemen, just 2 articles to cover today. Let me see if I can move my microphone over here to make it a little bit better, a little bit deeper. Right? You like it when it's deeper. Okay.
Get it
nice and deep. All right. So, according to some bartenders, there is a way to make some cheap beer taste about 10 times better. I don't know if you guys are aware, but I'm a craft beer enthusiast. I enjoy it.
Yes,
I look for
no.
I go for it, you know. So
I thought you preferred regular beer.
That's news to us.
No. Had skipped a generation in my house.
Wow.
No, but on the occasion, you know, you're going to be in a situation where somebody may offer you a Coors or a Miller or a Bud or even a Pabst Blue Ribbon.
You say no, thank you.
A Hams.
I'm perfectly happy drinking my own piss.
But there is one ingredient that everybody has in their kitchen that could really enhance the flavor of these cheaper beers. I'm going to ask that you guys think. Okay, get those brain waves a churning. And
you're not paying me enough for brain waves right now.
I'm not paying you enough to use your mind. That's what I hear.
I think it's bourbon.
It is not bourbon. I'm sure if you had the bourbon and then hold off on the cheap beer, that's probably much better. No, this is a seasoning in your spice cabinet.
Salt, pepper.
Mike got it with the first one.
Salt.
Add a little bit of salt. Have that handy dandy salt shaker around. Adding a little bit of salt to your beer. can really enhance the flavor. Some people add salt to certain beers like sours and IPAs to truly enhance the fruity notes and reduce the bitterness. And for those cheaper beers, it makes the brew taste a little bit more highbrow, where the pinky goes up in the air.
Really?
This has geographically, at least within the United States, you can find it in some places. Like in Texas, they call it dressed. Your beer is dressed. Most bars in San Antonio have containers to pour salt on side of the bottle or rim the edges of the glasses. And at most liquor stores and gas stations that sell beer, the salt is at the register. So, Texas.
Is it just plain table salt, or is
Yes.
it going to be like that pink Himalayan salt?
It's not the Himalayan. It could be regular ionized or non-ionized salt. In Wisconsin, PBR, Miller High Life, Schlitz, and Hams are brewed. Adding salt to ice cold cans is commonplace as well. So you can pour a little bit from your Miller High Life bottle into a glass with some salt.
Counterpoint.
Yes.
I had a sourdough pretzel beer once, which you would assume has salt in it, and it tasted like a glass of the Atlantic Ocean.
I'm guessing you just need to limit the amount of salt that you put into it.
Maybe less salt for that
Less
one,
salt, less salt, yeah.
One Reddit user shared another salty trick. I once added like a tablespoon of chopped pickles and a small amount of brine to a low-quality lager, and it tasted much, much better. Saw it somewhere on the internet and decided to try it. So, gentlemen, if you're going to have to down a glass of cheap yellow stuff, maybe keep a little bit of salt handy. If
maybe pickle brine, since we are the crossroads of
that is
fermentation. Yeah,
the pickle brine might be all right.
I have another counterpoint, Your Honor.
Yes.
If you have to add salt, pickle juice, or brine to your beer, you might want to go somewhere else.
And my second story. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
I would agree with Leo's second counterpoint.
Okay. My second story, gentlemen. What beer do you think is supposed to be doing really, really well at the Euro Soccer Championship? What brand of beer?
Budweiser.
Yes, at the Euro Soccer Championship, Budweiser is the beer to beat.
Guinness.
Not Guinness, surprisingly. German in origin. It's a Heineken.
I was going to say Einbeck's.
Heineken is blaming gloomy beer sales during the Euro Soccer Championship on rainy weather. They took a 10% dive on Monday after an expected sports-led boost for beer sales failed to materialize, and the company took a nearly $1 billion write-down on its Chinese investment. The Dutch maker of Europe's top-selling lager raised its full-year operating profits forecast, but some analysts said that it was not as bullish as they had expected. Excuse me, that was percolating. Heineken had bet on a month-long European Football Championship held in Germany and the Paris Olympics to boost sales. Instead, beer volumes ticked up 2.1% in the first half of the year, below analysts' expectations of 3.4%. Typically, big sports events like the Euro Cup have a positive impact, but the weather has been significantly below long-term averages and below last year's, impacting our business, CEO Dolph Van den Brink said.
To paraphrase Austin Powers' father, Nigel Powers, never trust the Dutch.
Never trust the Dutch. The loss contributed to the company's net loss of 95 million euros in the first. Oh no, that's a different story from something else. Anyway, it's not going to make them disappear. It's just a little bit of a disappointment. And I agree. Gloomy weather doesn't make anyone want to drink more. So that's the beer news I have for you today.
All right. Thank you, Kev. Thank you, Mike, for your segments tonight. We are going to take a quick break as we listen to some news from Coffee Brothers, and we'll be right back.
I love a good beer, but right now I could use a good cup of coffee.
Have you heard about Coffee Brothers?
Oh yeah, they're that coffee company out of New York, right?
Well, they're more like a coffee wizards of New York City. They source these amazing seasonal blends and single origin coffees. It's like a flavor adventure in every cup. And get this, they roast everything in small batches. None of that mass-produced stuff. It's like each bean gets the VIB treatment.
VIB?
Very important bean.
Sounds fancy, but is it worth it?
Definitely. Plus, they're a 2-person team. I mean, that's dedication right there. 2 brothers, 1 mission to caffeinate the world. And right now, you can save 10% on your order. I mean, who doesn't love a good discount?
All right, you've convinced me. Let's get some Coffee Brothers now.
Coffee Brothers, where every cup is a sip of perfection. Save 10% on your next order with the code FNF10. That's FNF10. Cheers to great coffee.
Oh, I'm okay with it.
Good to know. All right. We are back from our short little break. Please purchase some Coffee Brothers coffee. Use the FNF10 promo code to get 10% off. Some good coffee, and they deserve your business. We are now moving on to our main segment here. We're going to be talking about, as I said, perfect 80s flicks, according to the website collider.com. We recently were discussing this article about these 10 movies that they consider perfect movies of the 80s, and we figured it's a good topic to debate a little bit, see if we agree with this list or if there's other movies out there that should be on it. But before we get into this topic, please enjoy this little clip of some 80s flicks that are awesome.
You want to play what? Okay. No. Say hello to my little friend. Maverick, what the hell are you doing? Talk to Maverick, get in there, for Christ's sake. Ice is in trouble. He's got no cover. Get in there, Maverick.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Let me help you with that.
I think we better split up.
Good idea.
Yeah, we can do more damage that way.
Phone home. Who are you?
Hey, motherfucker.
Ray, unconscious chanting. You're chanting. I want to kill everyone. Satan is good. Satan is our pal.
Can it be scary? What do you think of this? You like it?
Good morning, Vietnam!
But you're so thin.
You guys!
Bleed.
Go! Get to the chopper!
If you build it, you will come.
I'll be waiting for you on the other side, relaxing with my thoughts.
You use your left hand or your right hand for that?
Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand. Wax on, wax off.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. I am your singing telegram.
Party on, dudes!
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey.
I would have to be dead.
No. I am your father.
Admiral, we have enemy ships. Sector 47. It's a trap.
Go ahead. Make my day.
First, I'll have what she's having.
Now that's a real badge. I'm a real cop, and this is a real fucking gun.
Maggots, Michael. You're eating maggots. How do they taste?
Up shit creek.
Ow!
Christ, Jake, take it easy, man.
Elwood.
Ow!
Jesus Christ.
Ow! Jesus Christ!
What we do is if we need that extra
push over the cliff. You know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Santa squeezes his fat white ass down that chimney tonight, he's gonna find the jolliest bunch of assholes this side of the nut house.
You got him?
Yeah, I got him.
I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter
Tied to this fucking couch!
Why do I stand up here? Anybody?
To feel taller.
No. Thank you for playing, Mr. Dalton.
No, I'm not.
I am not an animal! I am a human being!
Don't worry, Dave.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll be back.
All right, so that was just a quick little clip from 80s. I like to give a shout out to the 80s Nostalgia channel on YouTube for supplying us with that video. As you can tell, I had to do a little bit of editing. The video was like 12 minutes long, so I had to do some cuts to get it down to that 3-minute mark that we just used. You can see that there were a couple quotes that I kind of cut off in the middle there. I did get a kick out of the fact that the quote from the Dark Crystal was just the Skeksis going,
I will have to disagree with the Clue one as being the thing in Telegram being the quote from that.
Yeah, I know. I would probably have either gone with communism is just a red herring, or
flames,
it's not my face, or it makes sense now. It does.
My wife.
1 + 1 + 2 + 1, and there's other quotes. But I also like watching you guys react to the video from my end when you both laughed when nice beaver came up on the screen.
Thanks, it's just added stuff
from what's that?
Naked Gun. It's Enrico Palazzo.
Such a classic. All right, so we're moving on to our list here. This is the Perfect 80s Flicks. This is on Collider.com. If you'd like to check out the article for yourself, Collider.com, 10 movies from the 80s that are perfect from start to finish. So we're going to take a look at this list, see what we think about it. Do we agree? Are these movies perfect? Is there some flaws that would take them off this list? Are there other movies we think should be on this list? And then we're also going to read out some shout-outs to the people on the social medias who contributed to this list for us this evening. We had a lot of contributors, so there's a lot of shout-outs to get to. But number 10 on this list from Collider.com of perfect 80s films is the 1982 Steven Spielberg sci-fi classic, E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
You mean the Mac and Me ripoff?
Yeah, the Mac and Me ripoff. Spielberg's extraterrestrial adventure follows young boy Elliot, who discovers an alien he dubs E.T., which stands for extraterrestrial. Stranded alone in the woods, unable to leave the creature behind, he sneaks E.T. into his home and introduces him to his brother and sister, who both promise to keep him hidden. Soon the government becomes aware of his presence, and when the alien becomes ill due to their experiments, Elliot is determined to save his friend and get him back to his home planet before it's too late. According to Spielberg,
a beef with that synopsis.
What are we missing?
It wasn't because of the government's experiments that made E.T. ill. E.T. was getting ill prior to it.
It was also his connection to Elliot, because Elliot was beginning to get ill as well.
E.T. was literally getting homesick.
Yes. And his sickness was affecting Elliot due to the Force because E.T. is a Jedi.
Yeah. That's why they could fly into the moon.
That's why they could fly to the moon. And that's why he recognized Yoda as in the Halloween costume. According to Spielberg's biography by Joe McBride, E.T. the Extraterrestrial was spawned by the director's own childhood experience. When his parents divorced, he coped by creating an imaginary alien friend who served as a surrogate brother and father. Spielberg has been known to pull inspiration from his own experiences, which is perhaps why this film has so much heart and raw emotion, making it a timeless classic. I also remember reading that Spielberg wanted to make an alien film that didn't involve an evil alien trying to take over the world. Why can't aliens be friendly as well?
That's right. I love this film. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it still makes me cry when I watch it, as many times as I've seen it.
I feel that the music that John Williams produced for it is as much of a character in the movie as any of the actors are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the music alone could make somebody weep.
I feel it has the element of iconic status to it because of scenes in the film. Like everybody knows the flying across the moon. You know, like it's the symbol for Amblin Entertainment.
It is, but the eerie music is eerie the way it needs to be. The adventurous music where they're on the bikes is adventurous the way it needs to be. That closing anthem, you know, with the big orchestra, just pulls your heart out. It's like, that's amazing.
Now, do you guys think it's too low on the list, though?
I think it is low on the list. I do think it's low.
It needs to be in the top 5, in my opinion.
I think so. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being perfect, 1 being, you know, obviously not perfect, and 2, 3, and 4 meaning it needs a little bit of work. Would you put this as at a 5? Is this movie perfect?
Yeah, I would put this as a perfect film.
I would go with a 4 just because it will date itself. It dates itself.
I mean, the movie is an 80s film and it feels like an 80s film, but I don't think that is a detriment to the film.
I don't know if it dates itself. I mean, yeah, you're missing the technology of like iPads and touchscreens and everything, but it is. I mean, you can still get away with that now.
I think I would give it a 5. I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's
what I will say though, the special edition, the re-release where they made adjustments, when you have something so perfect, you don't need to tinker.
You mean where they remove the guns and give them flashlights or keys or whatever it is?
Walkie-talkies. Mm-hmm. You see them coming up, and it's like he's got a walkie-talkie in his hand. Oh no!
I mean, they're government agents. They're going to have guns,
right? And adding the CGI scenes with ET. I understand he wanted those scenes. He didn't get them put in the original way, but I don't think he needed to CGI it at all.
You know, he suffers from the same problem Lucas suffers from sometimes, so can't just leave well enough alone. I agree that I think it should be a little higher on the list somewhere. Mike, you think it should be a little higher as well?
It should be higher on the list, yes.
Yeah, I think it should be a little higher on the list. Number 9 on the Collider list for perfect films is the 1987 fantasy classic, which did not do well in the box office, but got a real following in the years that followed, especially due to VHS rentals and stuff in the 80s and 90s. It is the movie for which my drink is inspired, Dreaming of Large Women, The Princess Bride, directed by Rob Reiner.
Inconceivable.
It's inconceivable that it's this low on the list, I think. When a boy, Fred Savage, is home sick in bed, his grandfather, played by Peter Falk, entertains him with a fairy tale set in the make-believe kingdom of Florin. A farmhand, Wesley, played by Cary Elwes, sets sail overseas to seek his fortune so he can marry his true love, Princess Buttercup, played by Robin Wright, in her film debut, by the way. After Wesley is presumed dead, Buttercup is forcibly betrothed to the kingdom's prince, Humperdinck. But when Wesley returns, he embarks on an adventure through dangerous obstacles to rescue her. They forgot to mention Fezzik, played by Andre the Giant, and Inigo Montoya, played by Manny Patinkin. Cameo appearances from Billy Crystal and Carol Kane. My sister texted me today, very excited that she had a patient come into her doctor's office whose name was Montoya. I texted her back, unless his first name was Inigo, this really isn't important news. Based on the William Golden 1973 novel, which I've read. The novel is really, really good, and the film is fairly well adapted to the book. It's also the screenplay is also written by Goldman, which helps. The Princess Bride is an essential cult classic from the 80s that features a star-studded cast, including Mandy Patinkin, Chris Sarandon, and Billy Crystal. While the film has been praised as one of the greatest love stories, it is riddled with slapstick and deadpan humor, paired with several intriguing stories ranging from revenge to victory that seamlessly intertwine into a solid, captivating plot. I think it's placed in the right spot on this list. As much as I love The Princess Bride, I mean, I love The Princess Bride, you know that. I don't think it's the top of the list of like perfect films from the 80s.
No.
I mean, it does have its flaws too.
Yep. I would say this is another top 5 movie.
Really?
Not number 9, but top 5. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with it being in the top 10. I don't know if it's top 5.
Yeah, I think it's right where it should be.
I would probably give it a 4.5 out of 5 because it's as close to perfect as possible in my mind, just because I love it so much. But I do think it still has some flaws to it. I don't know where I would place those flaws. I just know that there's some flaws to it a little bit. Might be a little bit to do with like the effects a little bit or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's Fred Savage. I don't know what it is. It's not Peter Falk. Peter Falk's fucking awesome. The Prince Humperdinck was set to marry the Princess Buttercup. In fact, I don't. You probably can't see this because of the camera here, but I am wearing my Princess Bride T-shirt tonight, as you wish, with the picture of the Dread Pirate Robinson on it. But yeah, I think it's actually in a good spot on this list at number 9. What would you guys give it on a 1 to 5?
A solid 4.
5.
Not going to disagree with either of those, and you average out to my score 4.5. So
Yeah, because I think it's more the like the rats. They looked a little too fake.
You had a big problem with the screeching eels too.
Yeah. You hear that, princess? Those are the screeching eels. Anybody want a peanut? The next one on the list, number 8 from 1980. One of the early SNL skits to become a film, and probably the best, if not the best, arguably one of the best SNL skits to come to film. The Blues Brothers, directed by John Landis.
Great movie.
We're on a mission from God.
On a mission from God. Starring John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, when two brothers, Jake and Elwood Blues, learn that their former orphanage is at risk of being closed for back taxes. They set out on a mission from God to raise money by putting on a grand musical performance. As they travel across the country to get their band back together, they must overcome several obstacles, including a relentless group of police officers to reach their destination.
And playing
Aykroyd and what'd you say?
And singing Rawhide.
Yeah, singing at the Cowboy Bar. Aykroyd and Belushi bring their infamous Saturday Night Live skit to the silver screen with the laugh-out-loud musical comedy The Blues Brothers, which features several cameos by musical legends, including Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles. The movie is a toe-tapping blend of pop music and ridiculous stunts and shenanigans by one of the greatest comedy duos of all time that makes The Blues Brothers a vital film of the 1980s. Aside from being an SNL skit, they also would perform as the Blues Brothers and actually had a few like gold record albums that they released as the Blues Brothers as well. So this was like a legit thing.
This is the first SNL skit to be made into a movie.
Yeah, I think it is probably the first one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And by far one of the more successful ones, not counting Blues Brothers 2000, which is a fucking travesty. And I said, as I said at the beginning of that description, arguably the best SNL skit to film.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's probably like this and Wayne's World. And
then the Coneheads, naturally.
And then the Coneheads, yeah. And then everything else. Although I do have a special place in my heart for It's Pat.
It's Pat.
I love this movie. It's one of my favorite comedies. It's in Smoke Show Carrie Fisher, 1980, as the jilted girlfriend. Great music. Definitely considered a musical, I would think, even though it's using popular music and not original songs. Is it perfect? Probably not.
No.
As a lot of 80s comedies are, but it's a good movie, and I would probably keep it in the place that it's at on the top 10.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty good where it's at.
I think it's a solid 4 out of 5. I would give it.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
At the time,
the cop car scene.
I was just going to say the car chase at the time was the largest car chase like spectacle on film, given the number of cars that were used and destroyed and the places that they drive through and all that. Like it was one of the
And
largest.
The Fast and Furious franchise came out and blew it up.
I think there was another film that came out like a decade or two later that overtook it. And then the Fast and the Furious franchise decided to send cars to space, which the Blues Brothers almost did first because the Chicago Nazis car almost reached space when they hit that. I hate Chicago Nazis. Next one, number 7. I definitely don't have a problem with the place. And this one's one I might put in the top 5.
Yeah, I think it should be high on the list.
Yeah, it is Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, an early John Hughes film, one of his best, one of my favorites. I actually just watched this not too long ago. Starring Matthew Broderick, Jennifer Grey, and Alan Rook. This is with graduation around the corner. High school of Ferris Bueller, played by Matthew Broderick, decides to cut classes for one final day off with his friends. Between borrowing a Ferrari to performing in a street parade, Bueller goes to extreme lengths to make it an unforgettable day without getting caught by his older sister, Jennifer, played by Jennifer Grey, and his principal, played by Jeffrey Jones, who is hell-bent on catching the notorious class-ditching teen in the act. John Hughes' signature teen comedy, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, was the 10th highest grossing film of 1986 and features one of Broderick's most iconic performances. Ferris Bueller's Day Off stands out from other similar films for its unwavering humor as well as Broderick's constant breaking of the fourth wall with sarcastic, cheeky comments. He's the original Deadpool.
Yes.
The film earned overall positive reviews from critics, including Roger Ebert, who gave Ferris Bueller's Day Off 3 out of 4 stars, calling it one of the most innocent movies to grace the silver screen in quite some time. I don't know about innocent there, Raj.
I don't know about innocent. I was just going to say, I think I missed out on high school in the 80s, man.
Yeah, I was like, is this innocent, really? He cut school. He's lying to everybody. He's hacking into the school system to change his grades and his like days off and all that shit. They borrow, quote unquote, his friend's father's Ferrari.
Yes.
They lie about who they are to eat lunch at a fancy French restaurant. They swim in somebody's swimming pool. We know it's not theirs.
Abe Froman.
Abe Froman, Sausage King of Chicago.
An adult to get his girlfriend out of school.
Yeah. They lie about that. I do love it when he's kissing her in the parking lot and Jeffrey Jones is like, so that's the kind of family she belongs to. It's I love it though. It's one of my favorite as far like I love John Hughes' movies in general, but it's one of my favorite of all his films. Mm-hmm. And I think it probably might be a top 5 for me. It's not a perfect film, I would say. I'm not going to give it like a full 5 stars. I think it's a solid 4. It is hard to like get around the fact that he does all of this stuff in Chicago in about 6 hours.
Yeah, that's a little.
I can't get to Center City, Philadelphia, from where I live in New Jersey in less than like a fucking hour. So I don't understand how you can do that.
You can't get from one side of Philly to the other side of Philly in less than an hour.
You're lucky.
How many of us wanted to set up that contraption in our bedroom where the sheets would move and you'd hear the snoring machine just to fool your parents?
What was the thing? I like when when the kids are calling him from school, and he's like playing the sounds on the thing. And it's like
it's on the verge of death.
Yeah,
I think that was Christy Swanson's first movie too.
She was the student in the in what's his name's class, Ben Stiller or Ben, not Ben Stiller. What's his name? Ben Stein. Ben Stein's class. My friend Susie heard from her cousin's brother's friend. Ferris Bueller is dying.
He's going to give his eyes to Ray Charles.
You also have his girlfriend Simone, played by Mia Sarah. Yeah.
Fortunately, she didn't prosper quite as well as the other actors and actresses.
Yeah, she did a few films. She was in Legend with Tom Cruise. Before this and all that, but then her career really didn't go. Her career really didn't have the same track to say somebody like Jennifer Connelly from the 80s did. Number 6 on the list should be probably in the top 5, I think.
Number
1 and 2. At least 2. 1 and 2. It is George Lucas, written but directed by Irving Kershner, sci-fi classic from 1980. Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back.
We're not talking about the new version. We're talking about.
What'd you say?
So why are you saying that like Christopher Walken?
I did. I didn't even notice how I was saying. Directed by Evan Kershner. Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back.
And we're talking about the original, not the one with the new scenes in it. No, we're talking about
No, it's the original with Luke Skywalker and the little green frog guy on his back.
Obi-Wan was wise.
Obi-Wan.
Not to tell you what happened to your father.
Millennium Falcon. It's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. It's fast enough for you, old man.
No, Luke. I
am your father.
I'm your father.
Which is why it should be the top 2, because that was like the best kept secret in Hollywood.
Do not. There is no try.
So, what additional scenes from the special edition have a bug up your butt there, Mike? Is it just the Emperor, or is it the Hoth monster?
Oh yeah, yeah, all of it. I just don't. I didn't need. It did nothing to the story, so why do it?
So, adding the scenes, I don't think did much to the story. I think cleaning up Cloud City so that it looked like you were in Cloud City as opposed to like a white set, you know.
That doesn't bother me. I mean, but they adding new scenes.
Personally, of the three re-releases, Empire was the one that bothered me the least.
I think it had just a slight increase of scene.
It's kind of like when Star Trek came out with its enhanced version of the original series. All they did was change its background.
Mm-hmm.
And they changed stuff like the planets and the screens. That's it. There was no adding this monster that should have looked like this, or just do background peripherals. That would have been fine.
So, yeah, I guess. I get changing the Emperor so that the Emperor looked like the Emperor looked like the Emperor. I am thankful that they left the Puppet Yoda as the Puppet Yoda. That wasn't changed.
Oh, that would have made this the worst of the 3 re-releases if they did that.
But cleaning up the fight scene on Hoth and cleaning up and changing Cloud City to something that looked more like Cloud City, I was kind of okay with.
Again, it's not like Return to the Jedi where they added that whole fucking musical number in Jabba's palace,
right?
Or replaced the actor with Hayden Christensen at the end,
right?
Or like New Hope where they added all this like extra peripheral stuff at the cantina and all that. Like that stuff was it wasn't really necessary.
They added one of the lizards to make it riding lizards to make it look more this, or they put the cut scene of Jabba in that when he was human. Now, like you don't need that.
Yeah, you don't need that stuff. But with Empire, like I was able to kind of like get through it without like really thinking about it much because I didn't think it was too much that they did to that one as opposed to the others.
Monster was a little much, I thought.
I'm just really happy they didn't edit out the guy escaping Bespin with his ice cream maker. So in case you've been living under a rock for the last 40 years and have never heard of Empire Strikes Back, after being attacked by Imperial forces on the planet Hoth, Princess Leia, played by Carrie Fisher, and Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, managed to escape in the Millennium Falcon, while Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, travels to Dagobah with R2-D2 in search of the Jedi Master Yoda. As Luke trains with Yoda and becomes stronger with the Force, his friends are soon faced with parallel danger, forcing the young Jedi one step closer to facing Darth Vader. Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, is regarded as one of the greatest sequels of all time and is also one of the 1980s top-tier films. The movie became the highest-grossing film of the year, and while some critics had negative views of the films featuring more dark, ominous themes than the first, it still earned points for its visual effects, the impressive creation of the expressive, lifelike Yoda, and the overall strengths of the plot and performances. The Empire Strikes Back earned several Academy Award nominations, including Best Original Score and Art Direction, ultimately winning for Best Sound and Special Achievement Oscar for Best Visual Effects.
This was the introduction to the Imperial March, too, right? They didn't have that in the A New Hope.
I think you're right. I don't recall. I mean, I'll have to rewatch it, I guess, but I don't recall in the first one doing the Imperial March, because second one's kind of like where you get introduced to the Emperor for the first time too. So I think that's kind of like where it comes from, because Darth Vader gets to the ship and all that. Yeah, I think you're right. This is a 5, obviously.
Yeah,
most definitely.
And it's either 1 or 2 on the list. I'm going to have to say.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Number 5 on the Collider list, 1989 romantic comedy. It's my favorite romantic comedy of all time, and I'm not a big romantic comedy guy, but I love this film. Directed by Rob Reiner, starring Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, When Harry Met Sally. In 1977, college graduates Harry Burns, played by Billy Crystal, and Sally Albright, played by Meg Ryan, drive back together from Chicago to New York, which results in an ongoing discussion about whether men and women are capable of being just friends. Fast forward a decade later, the two end up crossing paths again and decide to put their opinions to the test and see if they can remain friends without sex becoming an issue. When Harry Met Sally is ranked as a vital romantic comedy that doesn't hold back when it comes to themes of sex, friendship, and romance, it's a pillar of 1980s cinema. Crystal and Ryan have amazing comedic chemistry, but are also incredibly endearing, adding a sense of realism to the classic rom-com that is a rare quality in other films. While Ryan and Crystal's interplay is the film's highlight, it also led to film critic Roger Ebert calling the film's director Rob Reiner one of the best comedy directors in Hollywood, and also noted the film's solid structure that effortlessly meets audiences' expectations. I have to point out that this is the second Rob Reiner film on this list.
Yeah.
You know how you could tell this was an 80s movie? There's a scene where they're in a Sharper Image store, and it wasn't an airport.
Yes, and there's when he's singing from the song from Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma.
He's a Surrey with a fringe on top. I like this movie. It's very quotable. It's very rewatchable. Katie and I will watch this all the time together because it's just a movie that we both enjoy. It is not a sappy romantic comedy.
No, it's a fun.
It's not a cliche romantic comedy. It's actually the blueprint that other romantic comedies have been trying to follow, but not being able to get right.
It is a romantic comedy where there's like no sexual tension between the two main characters throughout most of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry if I'm spoiling something. They do end up sleeping together, but it's not as if it was like a hot and heavy kind of sleeping moment, you know?
And actually the sexual tension doesn't come until after they sleep with each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's then after that where it's like, well, what did we do to our friendship? Are we still friends? And that, it becomes that sort of
thing. It was all based on the friendship and relationship. None of it was based off of like attraction, really.
Mm-hmm. And then it all leads to a really great monologue from Billy Crystal at the end when he finally admits that he's in love with her, and it's everything he loves about her kind of monologue. It's really good. I love this movie. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Top 10, not top 5.
Yeah,
I would put it number 6. Okay. Like just outside the top 5 for me. I'm going to give it a 5. I do think it's like a perfect film.
Like it's hanging outside the window of the top 5 going, hello!
It's hanging us, yeah. It's just barely outside the top 5. Number 4 on the list is it's the second John Hughes film on the list, 1985's teen angst culture classic, The Breakfast Club, starring a who's who of Brat Packers.
I have a question. No, you go ahead.
No, what's your question, sir?
No. It helps after the synopsis.
Okay. 5 teenagers, played by Molly Ringwald, Emilio Estevez, Anthony Michael Hall, Judd Nelson, and Ali Sheedy, who are all from different walks of life, are forced to serve Saturday detention together in their school library. Bless you. And are assigned to write an essay about who they are. Instead of working on the assignment, they pass the time listening to music, chatting, and other things, which leads to a heated exchange and admissions of secrets that make them realize they have more in common than they initially believed. The Breakfast Club is one of John Hughes' greatest films, as well as a quintessential 80s movie that explores the ups and downs of being in high school. Considering it is a time of immense personal growth and a pivotal moment in any teenager's life, The Breakfast Club does an incredible job of covering all the bases, with each character bringing something unique and alluring to the table, which almost any audience member can relate to in one way or another. It's one film that proves how most people have more similarities in common than differences, bringing a heartfelt quality to the iconic dramedy. But Kev, what was your question?
All right, came out in 85. And
Yes.
I'm not to say that certain cliques or groups didn't exist before this movie, but do you think after movies like this, like Pretty in Pink, like other iconic 80s movies where it is clique versus clique or group versus group, that doesn't it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that kids in the 80s watching the movies felt that they need to belong to one of these groups, and that's how that kind of like
No, because I thought kids in the 80s were already in these groups.
Okay.
Because you got to think, I was 9 when this came out. So I was already feeling the groups and that shit. Yes, I'm old.
I'm not going to make any jokes about Mike's age right now. I'm gonna answer your question by giving you an example from my teaching experience. A few years back, when I was still teaching high school, I had a group of kids in the journalism class, and this one girl talked about the Breakfast Club all the time. And I'm like, she's a 17-year-old kid in high school in the 2010s talking about the Breakfast Club. And I asked her, like, why do you like this movie so much? And she said, because it still makes sense today, because I know people like this, and I'm like people like in this film.
Okay.
So it's like you have these like archetypes of characters that still exist today, even though, the technology and the landscape have changed. Kids are still kids.
Okay. All right. Just had a thought, It was kind of like any high school, any teenage movie in the 80s. The center plot, or most of the plot, centered around the jocks versus the nerds, or the beauty queens versus the art students, or whatever it was. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
you go all the way back to the Outsiders with that.
Everything. Goonies.
I think that's what makes this
Lucas.
I think that's what makes this movie. What makes this movie so relatable is that you have a representative from all of those cliques together in the same room, and they have to learn to get along. It's not a us versus them kind of thing. It's not the nerds versus the jocks, or the socias versus the greasers. It's 5 kids, each representing these different groups, who are now learning that they're not so different from each other. Kevin is drinking a new drink and doesn't look fond of it.
I'm on my third. That's how long our session's going. It just kind of caught me off guard. There was something in there. Okay.
What are you drinking?
It's called beer.
It is a Crushing It. It is from Cape May Brewing Company, the Orange India Pale Ale. Maybe I wasn't expecting an IPA.
Mike, you still drinking the same thing?
Yeah. I got to get up and go to work tomorrow.
So I'm drinking. I'm on my third mason jar of Dreaming of Large Women, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be dreaming of large women tonight because I'm feeling good right now. We don't get done this session quick enough, it's going to be a problem.
So I would say this would be the top 2. This is the.
You think Breakfast Club is a top 2?
Just because it's as a perfect 80s movie, it is the perfect 80s movie to represent the 80s itself.
I do have a problem with them. Like, how did they get away with smoking pot in the library and like destroying as many things as they do?
Because there's only one teacher there, and he's sitting in an office somewhere.
He's doing the watching you.
I think it's definitely top 5. I don't know if it has to be top 2, but it's definitely a top 5.
I would either say this is in my top 3.
Yeah. Number 3. Speaking of that, number 3 on the list is the Ridley Scott sci-fi cult classic. I'm going to say, because it is a slow burn of a success. It did not do well when it came out, and slowly but surely gained the following that it has. It's 1982's Blade Runner, starring Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford stars as a former replicant hunter, Deckard, who was forced out of retirement by his boss, Emmett Walsh, and is assigned to eliminate 4 replicants who have escaped from their colonies and returned to Earth. Before setting out on his mission, Deckard visits the corporation responsible for creating the replicants, and during his time there, he meets a replicant woman, Rachel, played by Sean Young, who he falls in love with, ultimately complicating his task at hand. Ridley Scott's sci-fi thriller Blade Runner is based on Philip K. Dick's novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and is regarded as one of the best film adaptations of the author's work. The film was essentially ahead of its time, and initially it earned mixed reviews from critics, but throughout the years, it has gained immense support and is considered by many to be a noteworthy cult classic of the 80s. Blade Runner earned 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Art Direction and Visual Effects, both qualities of the film that continue to inspire filmmakers today. Okay. This is where we get to the point of the list where I'm like, okay, are some movies in the right spot? Are they deserving of the list? I think Blade Runner, as somebody like who is as big a sci-fi fan as I am, and who's somebody who's seen this movie multiple times and is a big fan of it, I think it deserves a place on the top 10 list, but I don't know if it deserves to be number 3.
I would agree with you on that. With Rutger Hauer, you got to put it on the list. But
yeah, just that monologue alone when he at the end of the film.
Yeah, I think 3 is way too high for it.
I do think it has some flaws. I do think it's a little slow paced for a modern audience. Visually, it is pretty stunning. It's one of the better filmed sci-fi films of the 80s. Harrison Ford's one of his best roles. Rutger Hauer gives an amazing goddamn performance in this film. Yeah, but there are some points of the film that are a little slow, a little dark in the sense that it's hard to see. You know, one of those kind of films. It does have a lot of like issues with the filming of it, with the cast and crew being mad at Ridley Scott. But I mean, overall, I think it's a top 10 film, but I don't know if it deserves to be in the 3 spot.
Exactly.
That being said, I do love the movie. I mean, I'm gonna give it probably like a solid 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
I don't think any of these films are below 4, except for the next one on the list. Number 2 is 1983's Brian De Palma Bloodfest Scarface. My favorite Brian De Palma film is The Untouchables.
Oh, by far.
And he obviously has a filming style, and that is over the top, almost comic book like violence. And Scarface has that aplenty.
Yes.
That being said, I am not a fan of this film at all. I would not put this in my top 10 at all for 1980s films. I think it's an over-the-top performance from Pacino that is like bordering on what would later become like caricature Pacino.
Yes,
but it's got a following which I don't understand.
It does have a very, very strong following.
It's got a following that just baffles my mind,
especially in the rap community.
All the ones
yeah.
Tonight, so they're going to be the ones emailing us, telling us how bad we suck.
I will say this, despite the enormous amount of shout outs I have to do, none of them are about Scarface.
Wow.
Like, they may have a following, but they're not listening to our show, apparently, I guess. I don't know. When a Cuban refugee, Tony Montana, played by Al Pacino, arrives in the U.S., he sets his sights on the pulsating drug scene of Miami, Florida, and manages to infiltrate the inner circle of the local drug kingpin. As Montana works his way up the ranks, he eventually takes over the operation, becoming one of the most powerful and wealthiest men in the country. But despite his immense success, his ever-growing drug habit and greed ultimately lead to his inevitable demise. De Palma's action-packed Scarface is a modernized version of the 1932 gangster film by the same name, and also stars Michelle Pfeiffer, Steve Bauer, and Robert Loggia. Considering the film's excessive use of violence and graphic content, Scarface initially earned mixed reviews from critics who many felt overshadowed the film's plot. But today, it has been re-examined and ranked as one of the greatest modern gangster films and an 80s classic carried by Pacino, who gives a show-stopping performance. All right, if you're talking about a list of like gangster films from the 80s that are great, I would put it on great 80s gangster films.
There weren't that many 80s films in the gangster films in the 80s.
You have the Untouchables.
Yeah,
They're on that list.
Yeah, Scarface.
You have Scarface. You have, I mean, I know there's others. I just can't think of them off the top of my head right now. But it's not on my top list of perfect films from the 80s. Of all the movies on this list, this is definitely one I would not put on the top 10.
Right.
And this is one I would give less than 4 stars. This is probably like a 3-star, maybe, being generous. It's all about the Pacino performance. Say hello to my little friend.
And he's performed better in other movies.
Yeah. Like The Godfather.
Like Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah. Any movie from the 70s, Pacino 70s, is prime Pacino.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. He is better in Scarface than he is in Geely.
Damn.
So why don't we just move? Yeah, let's just move to the top then. Number 1 on this list. Listen, I'm not going to disagree with this one being in the top 10. Probably in the top 5. I don't know if it's number 1. It is an amazing movie. It's one of my favorites from both Scorsese and Robert De Niro. It is the 1980 boxing classic Raging Bull, based on the true story of boxer Jake LaMotta. De Niro stars as LaMotta, an up-and-coming boxer from the Bronx who begins to train relentlessly for his shot at the middleweight championship. After dozens of matches and various opponents, LaMotta finally achieves his dream of winning the title, but outside the ring, he struggles to express his emotions, which soon begin to take a turbulent toll on those around him, sending him into a downward spiral. It's one of the films that famously De Niro stopped production to gain weight for. And he gained weight. He gained like 60 pounds or something to play like Jake LaMotta after his boxing career was over. He won an Oscar for this, De Niro, for Best Actor. It is infamously one of those Scorsese films where it was Best Director and Best Picture at the Oscars, but lost both. It is the first of 2 films in which Scorsese lost the Oscar for Best Director to an actor. 1980's Best Picture was Ordinary People, directed by Robert Redford. Martin Scorsese's boxing classic Raging Bull is based on the life of real boxer Jake LaMotta and his rise to success and unfortunate fall from grace. The movie had an average run at the box office, but despite De Niro's flawless performance and artistic direction, Raging Bull was criticized for its use of graphic violence. The movie still earned 8 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Director, and went on to win Best Actor and Best Film Editing. While it wasn't an initial knockout by some metrics, Raging Bull reigns as a crucial film of the 80s, noted for its choice of being filmed in black and white, its raw, gritty characters, and unforgettable performances by the overall cast. It's also the first film to put De Niro and Pesci together. Pesci plays his brother in the film and earned his first Oscar nomination for it. It's an amazing movie. It's one of my favorite Scorsese films. It's not an easy rewatch. It's not like Goodfellas, which I can watch all the time. Is it a perfect film? It's probably as close to perfect as an 80s film could be. I would definitely give this a 5. But that being said, it's not my number 1. Going back over the list, if I'm going back over the list now, I think, oh man, this is tough. But I think my number 1 is going to have to be Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's not just because I'm a Star Wars fan. I think it really is the most solid film on this list. Although there are some films missing from this top 10 list that we will be discussing.
Yes, there is.
There are a lot of movies missing from this top 10 list. So once again, to everybody listening out there, again, this was not our list. This is from Collider.com. Just to reiterate, this is their list, and we're going to talk about our shout outs and then our additions to this after this. But number 10 on the list was E.T. Number 9 was The Princess Bride. Number 8, The Blues Brothers. Number 7 was Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Excuse me. Number 6, Empire Strikes Back. Number 5 was When Harry Met Sally. Number 4, The Breakfast Club. Number 3, Blade Runner. Number 2, Scarface. Far from perfect. And number 1, Raging Bull. So now that we have gone through the list on collider.com. Let me bring up my shout outs here because we have some interesting choices on here. Some ones that definitely weren't on this list that probably should be. And we have a lot of them. So I'm going to kind of breeze through them real quickly. On Reddit from Shellstar7, he nominates Reds, which is a early 80s film about communism. It's directed by Warren Beatty. It's actually a film that Warren Beatty won the Oscar for Best Director for. Also on Reddit, Chosen One 429 says, Back to the Future. That movie has me imagining the things I would have done if I had the opportunity. Well, Chosen One 429, I hope fucking your mother wasn't one of those choices. We have Inquirer Bill on Reddit says Blade Runner. Again, I'm not going to argue that it shouldn't be in the top 10. I don't know if it's the best of all time, but definitely should be in the top 10. Our buddy Space Castle Podcast, who once again created our logo for us, they say Back to the Future. Regarded as one of the tightest, best structured scripts ever, it translates right onto the screen. The movie is beat for beat, damn near flawless, and the cast sells it at every turn. And then Sean Faust on Twitter says, I agree. It's a toss-up between Ghostbusters and Back to the Future, but I'd probably have to give it to Back to the Future. And then the rest of these responses were on Threads, Instagram Threads. This is the most responses I've got to anything on fucking Threads. So I asked the question, what 80s film do you consider perfect from beginning to end? Give us your pick. One pick, please. And we have Joe Maeli who says E.T. Definitely agree with that. Rebel_Rabble says Back to the Future gets my vote. It captures the spirit and escape from reality cinema provided us in the 80s. You couldn't make a film like this today because everyone would tear it apart. The 253 Vibe says, I don't think I've watched enough 80s movies, but the one that always comes to my mind is Stand By Me. Can't disagree with that one either.
No.
Joe Schiappa says After Hours. Not one that I've seen that many times. Germany_Roberts says Big Trouble in Little China. And my response to that is I will never say no to any John Carpenter film. Matthew Wayne Selznick says The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Saw it 3 times in the theater when it first came out, and I've rewatched it every few years since. Then again, my personal rewatch list is very short. Joe Schiappa says Real Genius, which my wife agrees with. She loves that movie. Bless you. Jage750 says, no surprise here, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Agreed.
Yes.
Well,
except that Big Bang Theory ruined that.
Yeah,
for
the
me.
Big Bang Theory screwed that one a little bit. We Are Sticky Heat.
Wow.
Gave us The Thing as their response. Again, I'm not going to say no to a John Carpenter film. The Real Burr Martin gave us The Last Starfighter. Yeah, I love that movie. It's one of my favorites. JB1234389 says Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Also on Threads, fuck off, Craig.
Wow. Craig, what the fuck did you do?
Fuck off, Craig gives us Streets of Fire. Corey Maddie gives us The Thing. D-Lo Films says Blade Runner. Ryan Biddle of Houston, Texas. That is his actual screen name. Ryan Biddle of Houston, Texas. Gave us Blue Velvet. David Lynch classic. Situationist Comedian says Back to the Future, hands down Zemeckis' best film. Cooper.T, that's T-E-A, says The Lost Boys, the best film ever made. Blue Man Scott, Stand By Me. Karma_Bring Heart, Rumblefish. Not the S.E. Hinton adaptation I would go with. I'd go with Outsiders, but okay. Rock Trumpets is Back to the Future, but there is some strong competition from Raiders, The Empire Strikes Back, and Blade Runner. Just a Man 75, Aliens with an S. Enough said. Disney.days.55, Dead Poet Society. Hone.raja.mantis, Blade Runner. Gary Hilborn, Working Girl, When Harry Met Sally, and Tootsie. Really Tall Redhead, says The Empire Strikes Back. Pika Stew 666, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Oh my God, I'm too buzzed right now for this name. Michael Wolodarczyk, Blade Runner. Douglas Lambert, Body Heat, a masterpiece of film noir. And Rusty Buffa, Something Wild. A lot of good movies on that list. Some that we obviously already mentioned in the Collider list.
One that we missed was Popeye.
Popeye.
No. One that was missed on the list by far was The Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a good one. I made a list of 10 films that were noticeably absent from this list. I don't know if these should all be in the top 10, but they could definitely probably be in a top 20 if there was going to be a 20 position list here. But here are the movies that I came up with. Some of these were already mentioned by our shout outs, so I agree with them on some of these. That would be Back to the Future. Why this is not in the top 10, I'll never fucking know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know who made this list up, but they made a big whiff when they did not include Back to the Future. Back to the Future is a damn near perfect film.
Yes.
Platoon.
Okay.
I think should be on this list. One of Oliver Stone's best movies.
Mm-hmm.
Field of Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can argue. I would put that in place of fucking Scarface. Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
Should definitely be in the top 10. Stand By Me. You can argue has a spot there. Die Hard. I think is arguably, if not top 10, it's definitely in the top 20 of perfect 80s films.
Okay.
Predator.
Yeah.
Get to the chopper. The Elephant Man. John Hurt and I am not an animal. I am a human being. Great movie. The Terminator. The original Terminator. And I don't know. I wrestled with this one. It's like I said, it's my favorite De Palma film. It's definitely not perfect, but I love it as far as 80 movies go. So I have The Untouchables on my list as well.
Mm-hmm.
You need to put Wrath of Khan somewhere in that top 20.
Yeah, Wrath of Khan. Well, I have 10 here. That would be 11, but I would take Scarface off the list anyway. So Wrath of Khan could be in that top 20 somewhere.
They're missing the Muppet movie.
The Muppet movie was 1979.
Sorry, I meant the Great Caper.
You could give me Muppet Caper, and you could give me the Muppets Take Manhattan. So I actually debated putting the Muppets Take Manhattan on my list. I love that fucking movie.
My name is Phil.
What else? I mean, I definitely miss the movies, man. I mean, there's so many great movies.
Oh yeah.
Just like Oscar winners alone, I probably missed.
That's because you want to Oscar doesn't mean you're a great movie.
Yeah, but there are some. Yeah, but the 80s was a different time for the Oscars because it was they actually kind of cared about what people thought in the 80s.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah, The Last Crusade's a great one.
Batman 89.
Batman 89. I don't know if that's a perfect film, but I love it. Academy Award.
Superman 3.
Superman 3. Somebody put that on Reddit, and I didn't read it. I was like, I can't fucking read it.
You guys have been drinking way too much now that you're talking about Superman 3.
Here are some movies that are Oscar-winning films that are not on this list, like Arthur, Ordinary People, Gandhi, Officer and a Gentleman, Tootsie, Terms of Endearment, saddest movie ever made, Sophie's Choice. Amadeus is another great movie. It is should be on top 20 maybe. Cocoon. Anyone?
Hey,
Color of Money. Good movie. It's a Scorsese film, believe it or not. Platoon, I already said. Wall Street. Moonstruck. Let's see what else we got. Rain Man. Fish Called Wanda. These are all movies that were Academy Award winners that you can argue should be on this list.
Gremlins.
Glory.
Glory.
Denzel Washington, Matthew
Absolutely.
Broderick. Great fucking movie. Dead Poet Society. Somebody in our shout outs mentioned Dead Poet Society. I'd put Good Morning Vietnam up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The World According to Garp.
According to Garp, yeah. Moscow on the Hudson, yeah, all those. Club Paradise. Revenge of the Nerds Part 2.
All right.
There wasn't a single Police Academy movie on that list.
Put Police Academy on that list, for Christ's sake.
Batteries
Mike's
not
like,
included.
Mike's like, I gotta get up in the morning. It's almost 10 o'clock.
The first 25 minutes of Full Metal Jacket. All right, we'll call it there. So, Mike, do you have any beer trivia history for us this evening?
I have some beer history. I have some alcohol history for you guys.
Ooh.
The bar tab of a 1787 farewell party for George Washington is still intact. The founding fathers drank 54 bottles of Madeira, 60 bottles of Carlet, 8 bottles of whiskey, 22 bottles of porter, 8 bottles of hard cider, 12 bottles of beer, 7 bowls of alcoholic punch, and there was only 55 attendees.
Shit.
That explains the grammatical error in the Declaration of Independence. A more perfect union.
Them some drunk fucks.
Yeah, some drunk motherfuckers. We have a cinema quote of the week brought to you by Mike, and again being read by Kevin, I'm assuming, right?
Do we?
Kevin's gonna pull his notes
I'll
up. Mike,
read
Mike's
it.
got this. So this is this Mike's cinema quote of the week.
Oh, no, I got it. I will read it. I can read it.
Read.
The most honest form of filmmaking is to make a film for yourself. By Peter Jackson, director of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, easy to say when you made the fucking Lord of the Rings. Oh, God. All righty. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight for episode 159. Perfect 80s films? I'm Ron Burgundy. We hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it for you. Again, you can send us an email at filmsandfermentation@gmail.com or visit linktree.com/filmsandfermentation to find all our social media and podcast links. You can also go to the deluxeeditionnetwork.com to visit our podcast and the other Den podcasts, including Podcasts of the Month, The Real Drunks. You can join us on Patreon or support us by buying our merchandise at teespring.com. Don't forget to stop by the crossroads between Pickled and Fermented next time around for episode 160. We are getting a little dark on this episode because we are going to be talking about movie deaths that still tug at our heartstrings, that we still cry about. Characters that we can't believe we had to say goodbye to in movies.
Deaths that still haunt us to this day.
Exactly. I have one that just popped in my head right now because I made a fool of myself at the movie theater because of it. So each of us is going to be making our list of 5 movie deaths that hit us the most. So make sure you join us next week to hear about that. In the meantime, I'm Leo.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Mike.
You've been listening to the Films and Fermentation Podcast, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.